Before you hear a single word out of my mouth tonight, I want you to sit with this. Just sit with it. Amanda Serrano, an undisputed world champion, an Olympic-caliber fighter, a woman whose name is stitched into the record books of women's boxing forever, took time out of her training camp this week to record a private message for two little girls named Nala and Nia Serrano. She didn't do it for cameras. She didn't do it for a press cycle. She did it because those two little girls have been boxing since before they could spell their own last names, and Amanda Serrano wanted them to know that a real champion was watching them, was proud of them, was in their corner. She told those girls she loved their dresses. She told them she was inspired by their work ethic. And then, in the softest voice you'll ever hear come out of a woman who has broken jaws for a living, Amanda Serrano turned to their father Dominic and told him he was doing an incredible job raising two rising stars. That's who Amanda Serrano is when the arena lights go off. Now, hold that image right there against what I'm about to walk you through, because tonight this channel has receipts, we have a paper trail, and we have a story that is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about the woman the boxing world once called the future of the sport. This is Claressa Shields like you have never seen her broken all the way down, and by the time this is over, I promise you, you are going to understand exactly why the ticket booth is quiet, exactly why Papoose is smiling in photos he shouldn't be smiling in, and exactly why Remy Ma has said nothing at all, because when you're that quiet, it usually means you've already won. Welcome back to the show. This is the corner of the internet where we take the receipts you were too busy to read and lay them out so nothing gets missed. Drop your verdict in the comments. Nothing is off the table tonight. Let's start with what Amanda Serrano did on Tuesday and what Claressa Shields did on the very same Tuesday. Because the calendars line up in a way that is almost cinematic. On Tuesday morning, Amanda Serrano posted a message of love, class, and mentorship to two young girls. On Tuesday afternoon, Claressa Shields, a two-time consecutive Olympic gold medalist, the first American boxer of any gender to accomplish that feat, an undisputed champion across multiple weight divisions, and until very recently the woman most industry insiders considered the greatest active female boxer in the world, posted 4 private telephone numbers to her 1.7 million follower audience with a caption telling her fans, and I quote her verbatim so nobody accuses me of embellishing, if anybody bored and needs some numbers to play on, here y'all go. Smiley face at the end. That is what she posted. That is who received it. That is the platform she used. And that is the exact stature she used it from. Let's rewind that for a second. 1.7 million people. 4 private phone numbers. A smiley face. A woman whose name lives in the ledger next to the few American boxers ever to string together back-to-back gold medal Olympic runs. That is who typed that caption. That is who hit post. That is who watched the notifications roll in. Peep the way that decision cascades. Because when a person with 1.7 million followers points at 4 private phone numbers with a smiley face, that isn't a joke, that isn't a vent post, that is directed harassment at a scale most people cannot comprehend. That is a whole city block worth of adults being told, call these numbers, entertain yourselves. And every corporate sponsor, every promoter, every network executive with a spreadsheet open on their desk saw that post and made a note. That's the whole reveal right there. Because a champion doesn't do that. A brand ambassador doesn't do that. A future Hall of Fame inductee doesn't do that. That's what somebody does who stopped growing at 17 and never noticed the years going by. And here is where I need to slow down and take you into the medical part of this conversation, because a lot of people online are asking the wrong question. They keep asking, what is wrong with Claressa Shields, why does she behave like this, why can't she stop? That's the wrong question. The right question is this, what happens to a human brain when the correction mechanism gets turned off? Let me explain what I mean. There is a growing body of research in behavioral neuroscience focused on something called cognitive calibration, the brain's ability to update its own predictions based on real-world feedback. It's the reason a rookie fighter walks into a jab once and never walks into it the same way twice. Human beings learn from consequence. Our brains are wired to update, to correct, to file the mistake and move on smarter than before. But cognitive calibration only works if the feedback loop stays intact. And that is where the trap opens up for celebrities like Claressa Shields. Because when you become elite in your field, and Claressa Shields at her peak was one of one, there was no woman on the planet who could touch her in the ring, the world around you starts to bend. Managers stop correcting you. Handlers start apologizing on your behalf. The people who used to check you become dependent on you. Your inner circle transforms from a team of advisors into a chorus of applause. And your brain, being a beautifully lazy organ, stops looking for feedback because feedback stopped arriving. Now imagine this happens for a decade. Every impulsive post defended by your camp. Every reckless quote cleaned up by your PR. Every embarrassing moment buried by your promoter because the promoter needs the next fight to sell. That brain doesn't get dumber. It gets isolated. It stops calibrating. And when the calibration mechanism goes silent for long enough, the person inside starts to believe every impulse is a good impulse and every critic is an enemy. Here's what's actually happening with Claressa Shields. She's not stupid. She's not medically impaired. She is calibration deprived. She is what happens when an environment refuses to tell an elite performer the truth for 10 straight years. And once you see that pattern, you cannot unsee it. Because everything from the leaked phone numbers to the ticket sales situation to what I'm about to tell you next fits the exact same signature. Speaking of which, let's talk about the man in the middle of all of this. Let's talk about Papoose. Because for weeks now, Claressa Shields has been walking around social media referring to a legally married man as her hubby. That's the word she used. Hubby. Not boyfriend. Not partner. Not fiancé. Hubby. And she has said it in captions, she has said it in tweets, she has said it in interviews, and every single time she has said it, a piece of the internet has died a little bit inside. Just this weekend, she posted a training clip of herself hitting the heavy bag with the caption, and I'm reading this verbatim, me at the gym being supported by my hubby Papoose online. Teamwork make the dream work. August the 15th we win again. Then, because one wasn't enough, she doubled down on Twitter. She wrote, and again this is her wording, all I do is train hard, then go home and my hubby Papoose online massage my legs and back. August the 15th it's go time. The comment section became a crime scene. A user named Andrea wrote back, girl, you mean Remy's husband, Papoose. And Claressa, undisputed champion, Olympic legend, woman who has trained herself into being one of the most disciplined athletes on the planet, responded with the following, no babe. He filed for a divorce. Please leave us alone. Thank you. Read that sentence again. He filed. Filed is not divorced. Filed is a piece of paperwork. Filed is an intention. Filed is a beginning of a process that has not concluded. And in every state in America, until that process concludes, the man is still legally, spiritually, and by every measurable standard, someone else's husband. But that is not how Claressa Shields chose to see it. She chose to see the filing as a finish line. She chose to call the man a husband. She chose to publicly own a relationship the state has not blessed and the church has not sanctified. And the entire internet noticed. A commenter named Matthew Toll wrote, he's not your hubby, he's still married. God did not give him to you. The same way you got him is the same way you're going to lose him. Claressa Shields, again, an Olympic gold medalist, again, one of the most decorated athletes of her generation, responded with, he's mine and don't put God in your mess. Don't put God in your mess. Coming from the woman who has scripture-adjacent quotes tattooed on her own body. Coming from the woman who has publicly cited her faith journey in interviews going back years. Coming from the woman who, and this is the piece nobody's talking about, was the one who dragged the sanctity conversation into this in the first place by calling a still married man her husband. That's not defiance. That's calibration failure in real time. But listen, if you thought that was the coldest part of this entire chapter, wait until I show you what Missy Smith did in the comments. Because Missy Smith is not a hater. Missy Smith is not a troll. Missy Smith is a woman who saw a piece of herself in Claressa Shields and tried, publicly, sincerely, tenderly, to pull her out of the fire. Missy Smith wrote, and I want you to hear this in the voice of somebody who has been through it, something so bad, you have to convince others is good. Never really acknowledging who he's with, you know he's with. Even if the public knows why, it's easy for them to move and find someone new and point at you as being the problem all along. That is grown woman testimony. That is a woman who lost herself to a man once and refuses to watch another woman do the same. And Missy Smith kept going. She wrote about publicly praising her ex-fiancé, about crying at his hospital bed during COVID while he had a pulmonary embolism, about gathering a community for his birthday, only to find out later he had been cheating the entire time. She poured her heart into that comment section. She said, "I hate to see you get dragged publicly for the way you love him, not the way he's pretending to love you behind closed doors." You know what Claressa Shields' response to Missy Smith was? "I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care. We don't care." That's the sentence. That's the moment. That is the exact microsecond where the audience turns. Because up until that response, a huge portion of Claressa Shields' fan base was still willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. They were willing to say, "She's young, she's in love, she'll figure it out." And then she looked a woman who had bared her actual soul in a public comment section directly in the eye and told her that her pain didn't matter. That's not a champion. That's a person whose feedback loop has been dead for so long she cannot recognize the sound of sincerity when she hears it. Now let me pivot to what has become the loudest silent crisis in women's boxing right now, and that is the ticket situation for August the 15th. Because for weeks Claressa Shields has been telling anyone who will listen that the fight is nearly sold out, that demand is stratospheric, that her name at the top of the marquee is pulling numbers no woman before her has ever pulled. And every single independent report tells a different story. Here's what actually happens with major fight night ticketing, and I want you to understand this because it changes how you read every headline you're going to see next week. Before tickets ever hit the general public, promoters bulk allocate huge blocks to radio stations, sponsor networks, and giveaway pools. That's why you always see radio DJs saying, "Text in to win 2 seats to the fight." Those seats were purchased before you ever got a chance to buy them. The public then rushes in, sees a partially sold house, and assumes demand is roaring. But a chunk of what got sold was never sold to a real fan, it was pre-allocated to a marketing engine. So when we look at tickets sold, we are looking at a partial fiction. Now here's the part that matters. When primary tickets do not move, promoters have exactly 2 levers. Lever 1, you raise the price to signal artificial scarcity, hoping FOMO drives closers into the cart. Lever 2, you drop the price to move inventory. Only one of those levers is a good sign. Only one of them means the fight is actually selling. And on this card, both levers have been pulled at different times in different sections, which is the industry code for, we do not know what is happening and we're throwing paint at the wall. I went on Ticketmaster myself. I sat there. I clicked through the seating map for a solid stretch. And I want to tell you what I saw with my own eyes. When you set the drop down to 2 adjacent seats, which is how most couples, most friend groups, most fight fans actually purchase, the availability collapses to almost nothing. When you set it to a single seat, tickets are still available deep into the venue. That's not scarcity. That's a phantom scarcity optical illusion designed to make the last dozen fans on the fence pull the trigger before they see the rest of the house is empty. And a woman who attended Claressa Shields' last 2 fights in Detroit went on record and told the entire internet the same thing. She said she sat in the nosebleed section, the cheap seats, the last resort seats, and from up there she could see the lower bowl clearly. And she said there was a whole section of empty chairs sitting directly beneath where Claressa Shields was fighting. The champion looked up into a crowd that had been sold to her as a sellout. But from the mezzanine, the real seat count told the truth. People were buying tickets at the door. That's how you know the walk-up was carrying the numbers, not the pre-sale. Which brings me to the man behind the curtain, and this is where I need you to lean in, because what I'm about to say is not a rumor. It is a pattern documented across 3 separate pieces of Papoose's own on-camera statements. Papoose has said, on video, that when Claressa Shields' contract negotiations were happening, he was in the room. He said he sat in on those meetings. He said he was part of the conversations. He said, and I quote him closely because his exact wording matters, that when Win Records came together with Claressa Shields' team, they put a lot of asses in seats. He said this while giggling, while shrugging, while pretending it was casual. And in the same breath he mentioned an $8 million figure and immediately followed it with, not to brag. The tell is the giggle. Because when a man giggles at his own paycheck, he is telling you he closed the deal. Here's what's actually happening. Claressa Shields has repeatedly said the Win Records deal just made sense. That's the phrase she uses. Not, it was the highest bid, not, it was the best long-term structure, not, it aligned with my career goals, just, it made sense. And every time she says that phrase, notice how she never explains what made it make sense. Because the answer to that question is standing 3 feet behind her, on his phone, wearing the label chain that he says he had on the day he first met her. Papoose himself has confirmed that. He has said, verbatim in interviews, that on the day he met Claressa Shields he was already wearing the Win Records chain. Meaning, before he was Team Claressa, he was Team Win. Meaning, when he sat in her contract negotiation meetings, he wasn't sitting there as a neutral supportive boyfriend. He was sitting there as an active stakeholder in the outcome. Meaning, when Claressa Shields signed her name on a piece of paper that the label he works for happened to also sign, that was not a coincidence, that was a channeling. That was a man with a chain steering a woman with a career toward a company with a checkbook, and everybody in the room knew it except the woman being steered. Papoose has told the public he does not make money off Claressa Shields. That is the story. But you don't sit in $8 million contract meetings, brag about closing them on camera, and walk out empty-handed. That's not how any music executive in the history of the American music business has ever operated. Something is being paid to somebody, and if it isn't cash, it's equity, and if it isn't equity, it's positioning, and positioning at the level Papoose is now standing at, his face in her promo, his name in her captions, his imprint on her walkout, is worth more than any single check anyway. Now let's talk about the music. Because Papoose released a new record this week and I sat down and I listened to it 3 times before I opened my mouth. I want you to hear the bar he opened it with. He said, quote, I got to get a big bag out this rap thing before it's all over. Got to hurry up. Time's against me. I'm getting older. I had my fun already. I'm doing this for my kids. We ain't billionaires yet. That's not how we supposed to live. Read that again slowly. He is telling you, on his own record, in his own voice, in his own vocabulary, that the clock is ticking, that he is behind on the bag, and that billionaire status is the target. This is a 48-year-old rapper telling the audience, inside a song that is supposed to be his art, that the art is a means to a very specific financial end. That is not craft. That is not passion. That is not the mission statement of a man who is in music because music is who he is. That is a man on a timeline, and that timeline has consequences for every business partner standing next to him. The music itself, and I'll say this as gently as I can because I don't come on this channel to bury people, I come on this channel to be honest with you, the music does not resonate. It never has. Not because Papoose lacks technical skill. He has technical skill. He can rhyme. He can hold a bar. He can construct a verse. What he cannot do is make a song that a room full of 22-year-olds can dance to. And in the current hip-hop economy, dance is the currency. Streams follow dance. Clubs follow dance. Charts follow dance. Papoose is stuck in a 90s template that treats rap as spoken poetry rather than as movement. And there is nothing wrong with spoken poetry, but you cannot bill yourself as a hitmaker and then keep releasing songs that live at bedtime tempo. Meanwhile, watch what Remy Ma just did. Remy Ma walked into a live orchestra performance and delivered a song that showcased both technical precision and modern arrangement, and the internet erupted. Not because Remy Ma is younger, she isn't. Not because Remy Ma is louder, she rarely is. Because Remy Ma read the room. She understood that in 2026, hip-hop is a full sensory production, and if you're going to demand attention, you'd better bring something the ear has never quite heard before. Remy Ma brought that. Papoose responded by imitating the format and delivered a bar-heavy performance that landed nowhere. And the algorithm knows. It always knows. Now this brings me to the last piece, and it might be the coldest piece of the entire night. Because inside the Win Records ecosystem, there is an artist named Khadijah who has been publicly bragging about a music video with over 1 million views. And on the surface, that's a great milestone. That's a career changer for an independent artist. That's the kind of number that gets you meetings. Except the math doesn't add up. If a video legitimately hits 1.4 million views on YouTube, the like count typically lands somewhere between 50,000 and 150,000 likes minimum. That's the industry ratio. That's what a real 1.4 million looks like when it's real. Khadijah's video, at 1.4 million reported views, is sitting at approximately 3,000 likes and 47 comments. 3,000. 47. Those are numbers you would see on a video with 30,000 views. Not 1.4 million. Not remotely close. Which means one of two things is happening. Either the view count is being artificially inflated through a purchase or bot farm arrangement, a practice that YouTube has been aggressively cracking down on in 2026 with permanent channel demonetization as the penalty, or the engagement is being systematically suppressed by a phantom audience who watched but did not exist. Either way, the numbers are a fiction. And the person publicly celebrating those numbers is either being deceived by her own team or is complicit in the deception. And this right here, is where you have to zoom all the way out. Because if Khadijah's numbers are cosmetic, and Papoose's music industry timeline is desperate, and Claressa Shields' ticket sales are being staged with pre-allocated blocks and phantom scarcity, then what you are looking at is not three separate scandals. You are looking at one connected operation. You are looking at a label that appears to be inflating metrics across three different revenue streams, merchandise, music, and boxing, to project a scale it does not actually possess. And the woman at the center of that operation is not the CEO. She is the marquee. She is the face on the poster. She is the champion whose name lends legitimacy to numbers she may not even know are being fabricated. That is why this story matters. That is why this story is not gossip. Because if a Hall of Fame caliber American athlete has been positioned as the front of a metric inflation apparatus without full transparency to her, that isn't a tabloid story anymore. That is an athlete exploitation story. That is a story that will outlive every August the 15th pay-per-view number ever printed. Papoose posted a video this week of himself sitting at what he called a money dinner with the owner of Win Records. He captioned it, and I'm reading his exact words because you need to hear him in his own vocabulary, keep an eye out for opportunists these days. Their actions never speak louder than their words. #pretenders. He posted that. About other people. From inside the very ecosystem that is currently under a microscope for exactly that behavior. If projection had a face, it would be that caption. And Claressa Shields liked it. Now let me close with the frame I opened with. Because Amanda Serrano, Olympic champion, Puerto Rican legend, one of the most technically gifted fighters of the modern era, spent her Tuesday building up two little girls she has never met. She used her platform to elevate. She used her fame to encourage. She used her voice to lift up a family she has no personal stake in. That is a champion. That is what stewardship of a platform looks like. That is what the trophy is supposed to mean. Claressa Shields spent her Tuesday posting private phone numbers with a smiley face and calling a married man her husband. Two athletes. 2 Tuesdays. Two completely different definitions of what it means to be great. And the boxing world, whether it wants to admit it out loud yet or not, is picking a side. The sponsors are picking a side. The networks are picking a side. The next generation of little girls sitting in living rooms deciding which champion they want to grow up to be is picking a side. And that vote, the quiet vote, the private vote, the vote that never shows up in a Twitter comment section, is the only vote that ever mattered. So tell me, in the comments, what you think. Do you believe Papoose steered Claressa Shields into the Win Records deal? Do you believe those August the 15th ticket numbers are real? Do you believe Khadijah's 1.4 million views? And most importantly, do you believe Claressa Shields has one last calibration correction left in her, or has the feedback loop been silent for too long? Drop your verdict in the comments. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next piece of this puzzle, because trust me, after August the 15th, whether that arena is sold out or not, we will have a lot more to talk about. Until then, stay sharp, stay observant, and I'll see you in the next one.